And
I,
yeah, I believe we're live now. Well, I hope we're live. Um, so welcome to another episode of the Adventure Games podcast and another live interview that I'm doing. And this time, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm joined by, I think we can call him legendary composer, Robert. Now, you're a bit, not shy, but I think you're very modest. But Robert Holmes, who's, of course, composer of Gabriel Knight, Moaebius Grey Matter, worked at Seoirse, and you've just released an album, a sequel, which we're going to talk about now. So, well, thank you so much for
Hello.
joining me, Robert. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me again. It's great to
Uh,
be here.
Yeah, no, well, it's great to have you. And if anybody is in the chat, please, join us. Please say hello. And if you have any questions for Robert, please let us know. Again, this will be available afterwards on YouTube. This will be available afterwards on the podcast and audio as well. But if you are here live to speak to Robert Holmes, please let us know and welcome. For it's last year, about this time last year that we last spoke, I
It,
believe.
it is almost exactly, which is great.
Yeah, almost exactly to the day. I think we spoke towards the end of December last year, which I couldn't believe back then that I was speaking with you, and now again, just a couple of weeks before the end of December. But how have you been in the last year? You've been busy, I believe.
Yeah, it's been a good year. Excuse me. It's been very busy, and that's a good thing. Lots of great work on on sequel and on other stuff, and it's always good to have things to keep myself focused. And we're very fortunate. We've been healthy and happy, and having a good year in general. So we're very thankful.
That's no, that's great. That's the most important thing, that you guys are healthy as well. Because I'm sure people know that you are, believe, you're partner of Jane Jensen, who wrote the Gabriel Knight games, and she's really successful now as well. She's in a writing books as well. Writing, I don't know how many books per year, but really successful, I believe.
Yeah, she's got, I think, over 50 books now that she's published, and she's always got one in the works. She just released a Christmas book a couple of weeks ago,
Wow.
and she's one of those people that everything she does well. So she's also like a master quilter, and all these things. Anything she focuses on, she's immediately becomes an expert. So that's always fun to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, she sends her love and happy holidays to everybody.
No, well, the same to you guys. Now, again, for anybody watching live, or if you're indeed listening, I will be asking Robert about possibilities or what he thinks about Microsoft's acquisition of Activision and what that may mean for possibly Gabriel Knight. We shall see. No spoilers yet. We shall see. I think I can guess what the answer might be still, but anyway, we can start with your album. So for people who might not know, what you did is Kickstarter, which was successful. But what is sequel? What were your objectives with sequel? So for people who might not have heard it.
Yeah, I'm of course aware that people would love to see more games from us, and I really have appreciated the way the fans have held and embraced the music from all the games and my particular sort of musical style. And I thought, I think I may have shared this story with you last time. We moved a few years ago, and I was setting up my studio, and I was breaking out some of the older equipment, and I started playing around. And some of this was stuff I had used on the GK games. And suddenly I realized I was writing music in that vein again. And I thought, people might enjoy hearing more music that was sort of in the world of Gabriel Knight. So I thought, well, let me go out and see if there's any interest. And we did the Kickstarter, and the response was overwhelming, which was great. So ideally, it was, the goal was to do a group of music that could have been another soundtrack to another GK or Grey Matter game. Something that dealt with the same textures, the same kinds of melodies, the same emotional content. And that was a great creative challenge, to go back and sort of get in that same box.
Yeah, I can imagine it must have been a challenge because, previously you worked on actual games, and this was a hypothetical game, as you mentioned, hypothetical new Gabriel Knight or Grey Matter. So how did you then work about creating this new music for? We will actually play a song after this question. I just remembered. But how was it just playing? Creating these songs, creating this music for a hypothetical game. Did you still work with Jane about what possible characters or possible stories, or was it more about mood of the game's atmosphere? Or how did you work on this in general?
It was a little more practical. I went back and I listened to the official soundtracks for all the games, and I tried to identify the kinds of elements, the kinds of songs that the games included. There were obviously action themes and big sweeping main themes and love themes and sad themes and funny themes. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try and make sure I include the same sort of balance of those, and do things that could feel like, again, that it belonged to a certain game. And it was interesting because of the Kickstarter, people could actually purchase a song that would be theirs, and they could decide the name of the song. So a lot of the titles on the album come from the people who supported that individual song. And it's funny because they sound like the titles about game characters because a lot of them have certain kinds of names and things. So people have asked me, does this mean there's a game in the works with those names? But yeah, it was a really great, really fun process to do. I spent about 3 months just writing at piano, and then about 3 months recording and producing the tracks, and then another 3 months mixing and mastering. The album came out, I think, in September. We just released the CD version a couple of weeks ago. And I'm just now this week getting the test pressings for the vinyl version. So the vinyl's coming very soon.
Very nice. Well, I'll ask you more about them. I mean, just saying about the titles, there is one called Graceless, which at least I'm sure some people might be thinking, ooh, that could be interesting. And then the character called Kristen's Team, and then Hunting the Shadows. That's also... It's almost like a tease.
That's right.
Well, I will play because I got a video, which, to believe you videos, we can talk about the video as well. I believe it's Flights of Anticipation. So I'm going to try and play a little bit of that, if that's okay with you, Robert.
That's
and
great.
We can talk about that. Now, we'll see how it works. So I'm going to try and seamlessly share my screen, and let's see if it works. Actually, no, this is called Back in the Saddle.
Back in the Saddle. Okay, great.
So again, we'll just play a little bit of this song, and if you're watching on video, you can see a little bit of the video, and then we'll chat to Robert more about it. So here we go. Oh, well, speaking of teasing, if you can't find, believe, the rest of that video on YouTube, because I before we actually were speaking, I didn't know that you created videos for your songs as well, and that looks like there's a lot going on there, and it looks like a really, really well produced.
Well, I have to give a shout out to my good buddy George Napier, who produced that. He did another one for me called for a song for Oberon, which is one of the bonus tracks actually on the CD. He's a very good friend. We worked together in a lot of ways over the years. And it's interesting because I just sort of throw the music over to him and he does what he would love to do creatively. And it's interesting because in this case, he really did. He's very good at sort of creating a small story, the world of a story, just like in a game, all within the scope of a video. And he also, as you can tell, he found little subtle ways to sort of call back to things like GK2, and there's some elements that definitely harken back to some of that. So he just did a great job. I was very, very happy and proud of it.
Yeah, no, it looks amazing. So we see. So how involved were you with the making of the video? Then were you with your friend? Did you just tell him this is the song? Did he create the video? Or did you work in the video along with him to try and tell the story?
Actually, I sent a few songs over to him, and I said, pick the one that speaks to you. And he did all the work, and then sent the finished video back to me and sort of said, well, here it is. And he's always open to tweaks if I have a little idea. And so, I think we probably had a little bit of collaboration after that. But in general, this was all him, and he just sort of ran with it.
Yeah, no, it looks fantastic. And then so he chose the actors and everything.
Well, what he does, he's amazing at finding existing footage that is available, and making things out of existing footage. So all of that is stuff that he just grabs.
Oh, really? So he didn't
uses.
Oh, wow. So that's existing footage.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I was going to say, it looks fantastic. It looks very expensive.
Yeah, it's wonderful, beautiful stuff, and the continuity is wonderful. And, what he does is magic. It's really great.
And do all the songs on the album, do they all have a video as well?
They don't. Just a couple, but we hope to do some more in the future, and wouldn't surprise me if we do some more next year.
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing the videos then, because I'll have to watch the end of that video myself. So again, I can include a link to that, but you can find that video on your website, which we'll mention at the end of this interview as well. Yeah, so then you mentioned that it was, a few things about how it was available as CD and all, and, the objectives. And I suppose now your Kickstarter was, which on video there, you can, well, actually, we can talk about the CD now, actually. Is that still available for people, or is that just for Kickstarter backers?
It is. You can order the CD on Bandcamp. As well as obviously as the digital version. And once we get the vinyl versions, you'll be able to order those as well. But we've had a lot of people already purchase and order the CD, which is great. The CD has, as I think I might have mentioned, has 5 bonus tracks. And it also has, as a part of our Kickstarter, we ran a covers contest because so many people all over the world.
Yes. I remember you mentioned that last year.
Yeah, and they do these great covers, and they'll send them to me. So I thought, well, let's do a contest. And originally I thought, well, I'll include the winning one on the CD. But they were all so good, I couldn't decide. So I said, okay, we'll just include them all. We'll do a whole separate disc. So there's a second disc in this that is all 18 covers from the contest, and they're from all over the world, and they're, some of them are acoustic guitar, some of them are euphonium. There's a guy who plays euphonium. There's a guy doing a pipe organ in a cathedral.
Wow.
There's just choirs. There's some really, really interesting performances. So, you know, equally as interesting as my contribution to sequel.
Yeah, no, a pipe in the in the church or in the organ, that sounds very that they go to a lot of trouble to that. So that's great that you chose them all, that they're very inclusive. And I'm also delighted to hear that people are still buying CDs and vinyl as well, because I was genuinely thinking, do people still buy those? But I'm delighted to hear that. So you found out people are still buying the CD version.
Yeah, it's been
still popular.
It's been really nice. I agree. It's great to have people going that way, and vinyl, as we all know, is doing better and better every year. And it's great. As a creator, it's just wonderful to have people. Some people, will take all the formats they can. So they'll get it digitally and on CD and on album, and so it's just great. I'm just really happy and pleased with the response.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also, I believe, on Spotify as well, without the extra. Now, I know we've heard from musicians and artists, talking about Spotify being in the news that might not help artists as well. So what? I mean, I'll ask you, see what you can say. What's your impression of Spotify? Do you think it's a good thing for artists, or do you think that does it help artists, or does it hinder artists? Do you lose money from it?
I think in general, it's.
If you can answer the question, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of demonic. I mean, I know people that work at Spotify, and they believe in what they're doing, and that's fine. But I think they really shortchange artists, and they really cheapen the value of music. But what happens as a musician these days, in order to get your music out, you really have to go everywhere. So, for instance, Sequel is on Bandcamp, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, it's on Amazon. It's anywhere that you would buy your music, hopefully. And that's kind of what you have to do to distribute broadly enough to make sure people, can find it. And Spotify is just sort of one of those channels.
Yeah, it's a pity that they shortchange the art, because my question would be is, how do you guys make money? Because we want you guys to continue working, continue producing this great music, but then
there's this great old lyric, the man in the suit just bought a new car from the money he made on your dreams. And, that's the music. I mean, the music industry has always been that way. The artists, with the exception of a few at the very top tier, the artists are not usually the people making money. But,
which it kind of should be. It kind of should be you guys. You guys doing all the work. It just seems crazy, because I've heard the same about authors, that they're the ones who I was told that it's nearly impossible to make money or make a living from being an author, and that the publishers who make most of the money and take it for. I'm like, it should be the other way around. I mean, nothing against publishers or anybody else, but just the people doing the bulk of the work should be making the most money. It's
well, and that's one of the great things. I mean, like Jane, self-publishes a lot of her books, and
good.
And she does much better in terms of financial stuff when she does that. And that's one of the things I love about crowdfunding and things like Kickstarter, is that the people who care about my music, even if it's just a small passionate group of people, which always surprises me that there's actually an audience in places all over the world that are interested in this music, that they have a way to directly share that and be a part of that passion and, be supportive of me as an artist, which they certainly were, in the Kickstarter for sequel. And I really appreciate that. And it's a great way for the artists to get supported directly and sort of cut out the middleman, to a great
Yeah.
degree.
Oh, well, people, if you haven't seen my interview or listened to my interview with Tony Warrener, you really should, because he's the developer of Broken Sword, one of them, and they also had issues with publishers as well. And so I encourage you to check that out for more on that. But in terms of Kickstarter for you, and we also just heard a little bit how that song sounds, which certainly sounds amazing. How did the Kickstarter help you to create the music? So we spoke about how successful it was. How did that help you make the sound as good as possible? So first of all, was it a big help to you in terms of creating the music? And more or less, how did it help? In case your future Kickstarters, how important Kickstarter is.
It was incredibly helpful in several ways. One, it gave me a financial model that could allow me the freedom to not have to focus on anything else last year other than creating this album. So it really gave me, the time to really do it at the level that it should have been done. It also, gave me the opportunity to upgrade some things in my studio that were very valuable in terms of impacting the quality. And then as I moved through the process, it allowed me, for instance, to utilize people like Larson Mastering, who are world-renowned. They have won every Grammy possible. These guys are one of the top 3 mastering houses in the world. And so to be able to afford to take my music, finished music, and give it to people like that and have them do their magic, as well as the guys who've worked on prepping the vinyl version. Some of these guys are the very best in the world. And so to be able to afford that kind of talent to collaborate on really does make an impact on the end result. So, creatively, it was incredibly helpful.
No, that's great to hear. And was it your first time on Kickstarter? I believe, you and Jane were on Kickstarter about 10 years ago, which was also successful for your game. So, and did you learn anything this time, or was it just as scary going on Kickstarter a second time?
It's stressful. Yeah, it is stressful.
Or were you more confident the second time? We're thinking, oh, I know this Kickstarter business.
Oh no, I think it's like having children. You forget how challenging it is. But there were some great learnings. I mean, Jane and I had a wonderful experience, and we also had a challenging experience with our Kickstarter. And I think everybody knows that story.
Yeah.
But I had some good learnings from that. And one of the things in terms of music, that I continue to learn about going through the process is, you really do have to anticipate a lot of things usually are going to cost more than they did, or you anticipate that they will, in terms of things like mastering and production and vinyl production and things like that. So all of that's very important to have learnings. But one of the things we talked about Roberta Vaughn and her great support during the Kickstarter and in helping me. It's been a really good education again in how to connect with fans, how to, really be connected to the community in a way that's not just promotional and valuable from that angle, but also, hopefully is valuable for them. And it's been really wonderful. Like when we were at PAX West a few months ago, and Jane was on a panel, we had so many fans come up and say, oh, I contributed to your Kickstarter and I can't wait to hear the album and all that. So it's just really wonderful to have that connection in place.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from, developers and artists who go on Kickstarter. They say that even if they can get the money another way, a lot of times they just use Kickstarter just to connect directly with the fans. That they say,
Yeah.
this is great, we could get publishers, but we prefer to go, this way, just to speak directly to fans and connect with them directly, and get them involved as well. Like, ask them more or less what they would want as well. Like you mentioned about the titles, because I was going to ask you about that, and because they're very curious titles. But was it the fans who helped you come up with the titles for every song, or how did that go?
Not for every song, but many of the songs. I think probably a good 60% of the songs are songs that were titled by fans because, for instance, Alice's theme, which is the last sort of ballad on the album, was written as a lullaby. And Sarah, who supported that song specifically with her Kickstarter contribution, asked, could I do a song for her little girl, Alice?
Oh,
And so this became Alice's theme. So again, it was a great creative connection between a fan and the process, and it was an honor, to write a piece of music that would specifically, be directed toward a young child like that.
yeah. Oh no, that's great to hear. I didn't know that. Because I was thinking that you came up with these as well, but that's a really lovely story.
It,
I hope it wasn't the same for like Hunting the Shadows.
that was actually one of the titles that I came up with, because I did want to try and pepper some things that would feel like one of the games.
No, oh, most definitely. So, and then you mentioned that you have, there's action music and love music and sad music, as well. And did you? I suppose did you find yourself, what was it easy, or were there any challenges getting back into the mindset? Because I said I'm not a musician, but I can just imagine it might be like writing. But I'm sure he's involved in working as a musician, even not on the games, but specifically for this hypothetical game, to get yourself after the Kickstarter back into the mindset. How was that? How was that process too?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was actually a little fearful about it because, you just never know when you sit down to write music, what's going to happen. Um, I did sort of change my process because usually, when I do music, you sort of focus on one song at a time. You sit down, you write the music, and then you produce the music, and then you mix and master or whatever. In this case, I wanted to try and do all the writing at once. So I got a little digital piano and I put it on our dining room table. And just anytime I was in that room and I thought I had a little idea, or maybe I'd been out for a car ride and I was hearing something, I'd sit down at the little piano and just play it. And in fact, one of the finished tracks on the album is actually that first performance of me just writing it, sort of playing it down for the first time on a cheap little piano. But what I did is I spent 3 months just doing nothing but that. So I wrote all of the music all at once. And then I took all those songs and started producing them and adding the other parts and the synthesizers and guitars and things. So it was a change for me in the process, but it was really nice at the end of that first 3 months to know, oh, this is going to work. I do still have this kind of music to give, and it's obviously wants to come out, and I actually had more than what I used. So it was very encouraging.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And then, it must have been different to when you were working at Sierra, because this was, working Sierra, this big company. And I'm sure, I don't know if they gave you, I don't know if they gave you notes, or, working with Jane, working with the people there. Did you feel like you had more or less freedom now with Sequel, or was it still similar to how you worked at Sierra? How was it now working on Sequel
It
in this
was,
case?
yeah, It was interesting at Sierra because I was both producer and composer on the project.
Mm.
So I would spend half my day, being the producer, and then I'd have my piano behind me, and I'd spend the afternoons, I'd turn around and just write music, and I might
The
grab
different
Jane and
hats.
say, yeah, exactly. And, I'd grab Jane once in a while. I'd say, hey, listen to this. What do you think? But it's funny. In fact, I joked with her the other day because she's a writer, and our household stays fairly quiet because she's usually writing. So when I do music, I do a lot of it in headphones. And I was joking. I said, do you realize, Jane, that I wrote, produced, and completed this entire album, and you never heard a piece, one note of it until it was done. So we laugh about that. But yeah, I felt a lot of total freedom, and again, I think that's one of the positive things about the Kickstarter dynamic. As my friend George said, he said, it's so wonderful that you now, at the end of this Kickstarter, you've been set up for a year of work, the work that you love doing, the kind of music you love writing, and you have total control about, as a creative and an artist, about what that's going to be. And it is a really nice dynamic that way.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I was going to ask you, did Jane help you, with that? But you've just answered that. She only listened to it afterwards. What did she think? Did she have any opinions on? Did she get inspired?
She really loves. Yeah, she really loves it. It's funny. Jane and I have always kind of been that way. She's always been very supportive and comfortable with my choices. So usually, when we were doing the game, she would just say, "Hey, I need this kind of theme," or "We're thinking about this for this kind of scene," and I would go off and do it, and she would hear the end result later. Um, and she is not. It's funny because Jane is not very musically focused. She doesn't listen to a lot of music or anything. And I'm not a fiction person. I read nonfiction. So I don't really read her work, and she doesn't really listen to my music. But we have a lot of respect, especially when we work together on things. We have just a ton of respect about what we're both going to bring to the table and the way it sort of blends together successfully, hopefully.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And has your daughter, who I believe is also a singer songwriter herself from the Scarlet Furies, is it?
Yes.
Has she
Yeah.
listened to the album? Has she?
She has, and she's actually always a really good sounding board for me because I have a lot of respect for her as a musician, and uh, we're very good at working with each other musically, collaborating. And so she gave me some great feedback. She's got some favorite songs on the album, and it's always good to hear from her about it. And I'm hoping uh, as we talk about things that may follow on, in the coming year, I'm hoping maybe I can talk her into being a part of some of that. So we'll see.
Interesting. Well, we'll just ask you about that now in just a second. But I suppose, well, maybe not my final question on this, but it's in terms you've done the music, created the music, spent all these hours and days, weeks, months creating this fantastic music, and now getting the word out there. Now that you're also doing this, with Roberta Vaughan and but you don't have, you're not with Sierra, who would have their own marketing department. You are the marketing department, I guess.
That's right.
How was it? How did you go about, getting the word out about your album and this music and say, hey, look, I'm Robert Holmes. I have a new, completely original album, original songs.
Hey, yeah, yeah.
How was that? How did you go about that?
It's always a challenge. It's that's another great thing, and also one of the challenges about to assume that the people who care the most about hearing your music have already contributed the album or the Kickstarter process. So you kind of have to anticipate, well, okay, so after that, it's going to be more the long end of the tail that you're trying to reach. And so thankfully, from the work Jane and I did during our Kickstarter and other things, we've compiled a pretty healthy email list. So I go out and do blasts to that list, hey, this is coming. You might care about this, you might not, but it's here if you want it. And so that's been helpful. And then of course, social media, and of course, having conversations like this, just any way that you can sort of get out there in the ether, seems to have some value, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I mean, I suppose, getting the word out, doing interviews like this. There was other developers of a game that I spoke with, that they did an interview on YouTube. Now, what they said was that this person, that he didn't have many followers. He just had, I think, I don't know, 4 or 5 or whatever. But they said that they still agreed to do the interview, because they said if those 4 followers bought their game,
Yep.
and then they recommended their game to, say, 4 other people, and then it kept going, it's like, we could make more sales that way. It's
Yeah,
kind of a
absolutely.
win-win. It's so.
Absolutely. And, it's been really sweet to see, as people receive the album either digitally or on CD, a lot of people will sort of post, hey, look what came in the mail today, and this is my favorite song, or I love this. And it's been, really rewarding, because all of that, which I didn't anticipate, has been very positive. And all of that helps contribute to awareness,
Absolutely. One of the best that I believe, and now again, I'm not a marketer either, but it's, word of mouth from people, from fans,
Yep.
if they have to get the word out, which, I mean, I keep seeing as well, on Facebook and online as well, people talking about sequel with pictures of the CD and everything. And so it's really great to see. And and then this is for a hypothetical game. This game doesn't exist, but if there was to be a game in future, in a coming year or two, or whatever, would you use any bit of this soundtrack, do you think, or would you start again? I know that's a hypothetical question all by itself, but do you think you could go like, okay, yeah, soundtrack is ready, or would you have to tweak it, I imagine?
Oh, I would probably. In fact, I remember joking to Jane, I'll do this album, and then we'll get the deal for the next game, and
Over to
I'll
you.
have to do it all over again.
I've done my work.
Yeah, that's right. But I would probably start all over again, because I think what happens is, especially with somebody like Jane, she creates a world, and in that world for that game, or that story, there are specific things that really I creatively respond to. And that's always been the case in the game. So again, it would be my pleasure to take her story and what she is creating, and then respond to that, creatively and musically. And so I'd be happy to do that again.
No, you'd be happy to do it all over again.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Now, if people have just joined us live and you have any questions for Robert about sequel, about his album, please put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to ask. And now, before we get on to things that you said you're going to tease about what you may or may not do, just to finish off with sequel, where can people get? You mentioned Bandcamp as well, so can we get it digitally as well, or different versions of it? Where can people find out more and buy the album?
You can just about any music service, Bandcamp, you can get digital or CD, and eventually the album. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, it's on Amazon. It's on just about all the digital music services. And you can also find out more at robertholmesmusic.com, where we have a lot of listings of where it's available and latest news. So that's always a good place to look as well.
Okay, well, I'll be putting links in the chat to those places as well, where you can get these listings or this album as well, and it's also help to support you. That's what we want. We want you to continue working, and so I suppose now I do need to ask you this question. You can tease as well that you said, but I suppose let's talk about Microsoft and Activision. And there's a big news at the beginning of the year when Microsoft bought Activision, and I know many people, their first thought was, oh, Call of Duty, will it still be available on PlayStation? What's going to happen to World of Warcraft and all this and anything Activision does? My first thought was, Gabriel Knight 4. What does this mean for the possibility? Now, as I said, I don't know if anything is happening, will happen, might happen. But since you've worked on Gabriel Knight 4, since I'm sure you know some people in this, what can you say now that Microsoft was still in the process of the acquisition of Activision? Do you think that this might give a better chance or worse chance or still the same? Because people have different opinions. I believe Ken Williams himself mentioned he didn't think that much would change. He said that, look, Phil Spencer and Microsoft, they're going to try and recoup the billions that they've spent on it. And he said, unfortunately, Sierra games aren't going to do that quickly. They're going to focus on Call of Duty. Other people, it might have been yourself, has said, I think that it might help. So over to you again. What is your opinion directly from the horse's mouth?
Yeah, well, I agree with Ken in that, they're spending what, 68 billion or something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I think that's supposed to wrap up this June, hopefully. And I think Jane and I both feel, we have been very frustrated over the years with Activision and their sort of inflexibility with licensing and with getting things to be done. And I mean, it's been crazy. We've had many feature film ideas, but by really great feature film people who wanted to do a GK movie or something, and Activision just would say no. Or we had at several points, including back when we did our Kickstarter, we're in discussions with them, and they've just always been very difficult. So it's kind of like it can't get any worse. It's bound to be better. And we do. I mean, I know a bit about the world at Microsoft. I've worked with them for a lot of years during my agency career, and I know they're very smart people. They're very creative folks. They're very interested in doing things and in progressing and I think that our hope and our opinion in general is that we view this as a good thing, and we think that at some point, and we certainly don't know when, but we feel like it may open some doors that have not been opened in the past. And we're, as I mentioned to you, I think before we started, Jane and I are both very, very interested in doing more GKs and, doing another Grey Matter. And Jane would like nothing better than to spend the next few years focused on games. So we're going to do everything we can do to help manifest that. We're working to try and cultivate ways to work with Microsoft when and if the time comes, and we would love to do it. So we're big fans, and this was our experience with Gabriel Knight in general. We really believe that if we envision something, and if we sort of put that out in a clear way to the universe, and that we can help manifest something, and that's our opinion on this. We hope to be able to do that eventually.
No, that's great to hear that you guys want to do it, because as I mentioned to you as well before recording, that at least I want you guys to want to do it. I certainly don't want to force you guys to do something, like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who didn't want to write any more Sherlock Holmes, or Agatha Christie, who felt she had to write more Hercule Poirot. But it's great that you guys are still passionate about doing this, if at all possible, because certainly be great if you guys had the option to.
And the truth is, the story and the sort of world for GK4 has always sort of been there and sort of waiting. So I think Jane is very, very interested in seeing it happen, and it could happen in any number of ways, both directly or indirectly, with Microsoft. So. We're just being very open, and whenever we have the opportunity, we're sort of saying, "Hey, we're game," and that again, was part of what I was hoping to also support in doing sequel, was to say, "Hey, not only can I still do this music, but I want to do this music, and I'd love to have a game to do this music too." So hopefully the universe is listening.
Yeah, well, you guys want to do it. Return to Monkey Island was just released this year in 2022. Ron Gilbert didn't get to write, but he was able to work with LucasArts and Evolver. They were able to help get him to make the game that he wanted to make, and it got great reviews. I believe they said that sold the most out of all the Monkey Island games as well. So adventure games can still sell well. Ken and Roberto Williams are about to release a game as well. Adventure games are, they're not mainstream like they were maybe with the guys, but they're still doing well. They're certainly not dead. And I just think, just make it happen. You guys want to make it happen. Gabriel Knight is a beloved franchise, and there's so much potential.
Well, and, we're so happy to see everybody, see Ron and Ken and Roberta doing great stuff. We're very supportive of all that. And it was so great. We congratulate Ron on his success. And, we believe that, yes, adventure games, are a smaller market, and it will always be. But, there are some ways we can continue to grow that market, and retro gaming, seems to be very popular these days. And then you've got, people like Dave Gilbert, who are, very talented at creating games, with very small budgets that people, find great enjoyment from. So, all of those things I think are good momentum and valuable steps in helping create opportunities for people like us to do more of it.
Yeah, and again, Dave Gilbert didn't work on this game himself, but he published it, The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow, which certainly has similarities to Gabriel Knight. It's very different in some ways, but it's horror, folksy horror. I was thinking, this reminds me a little bit in a good way of Gabriel Knight, and that, he said, was that one of his best-selling games as well of Wajidai. So clearly there is a market for this, and that's what kills me. It might make $1 billion, but clearly it should make its money, I think, if it's done well. If it's done right.
We had I think I mentioned, we had a great experience at PAX West when Jane was on a panel with Dave and Ron and Ken and Roberta, and we had a lunch afterwards, and Dave was there, and he was very nice in sharing with us how much of a fan he was of GK and Grey Matter, and it's always great to hear that it's a part of somebody's inspiration, and it's important for us. We still feel we have some great work to do, and I think we want to create an opportunity to do that. So hopefully that's going to be the case.
Yeah, hopefully. And do you think that the success of sequel, that if there are theoretically any discussions with Microsoft, that you could go, hey, well, look, this is an album that I worked on completely originally, and look at this success. It's so.
Well, hopefully at the very least, it shows that the audience is still out there, and that people appreciate, the world of GK and this kind of music, and that hopefully I can still do it, to a certain degree. And So, but all of it, as we said with social media, it's just sort of another thing that helps keep
Mm,
awareness up. That somebody in a meeting, happens to mention, hey, I just, we're talking about Jane Jensen and Robert Holmes, and I saw
yeah.
somewhere that Robert has a new album out. So at least they know we're still around and we're still doing work.
Yeah, and I don't know if I saw this in a video, but I believe was it someone mentioned that people at Microsoft, some of them either worked for Sierra before or were fans of Sierra, or maybe both. That
Yeah,
they're young
I
people
think
at the
both.
time.
I
So
think
if they're
both. I know there are several people who were at Sierra who ended up at Microsoft, and some of them have since left. Some of them are still there. Um, you just never know when something is going to make sense from both a creative and a business perspective to do it. But with all of this sort of developing in various angles, I think we just feel that there's very good momentum, and there could
mm,
very well be a possibility that this could happen at some point.
well, look, the best of luck. I certainly hope so. Michael Clammer's in the chat. Apologies if I got your name wrong. Hello, Michael. Who I believe he does another adventure game club podcast. Really enjoy that podcast. Hoping to say, Michael, it's he mentioned Microsoft funding development of Pentiment gives me hope that they have an interest in adventure games. And Pentiment is I've played the start of it, really good, and it's got great reviews as well. So hopefully that will contribute to the momentum. And then
That's great.
the final question then about that, and I will ask Michael's question about going back to sequel before we finish. But in the meantime, and I know you said you and Jane would like to go back to make Gabriel Knight. Would you also, in the meantime, like to maybe work on another Grey Matter, or if you have the rights to that, or another original game, even a shorter, smaller game? I don't know, in the just to show that,
Yeah,
or would that be a
yeah.
possibility? Because
Yeah, there is a possibility. We own the rights to Gray Matter, which is nice. So we can do anything we want with that. And actually, we've always felt for a long time that it would make a great, TV series, or a Netflix thing or something, because it's just kind of got that vibe. Um, but also as a game, there's definitely more that could be done there. So we're very proud of Gray Matter and feel like there's more that could be done with that, and we would like to do that. So that's also something that's possible.
no, well, I would look forward to hearing more. Michael said it's me on the Adventure Game Club. So again, you listen to that. Uh, now, well, he has a question actually, which I will go ahead and ask. He said was your album inspired at all by John Carpenter's albums of themes for movies that don't exist, or that have anything to do with?
It didn't. Though, I have a lot of respect for John Carpenter and what he, has done musically, obviously with his films and otherwise. That first Halloween theme is just iconic. It's just crazy.
Mm,
But yeah, it was. It wasn't really directly inspired by that, but it certainly shares the same spirit. And my overall belief was, hey, this music was one of the legs on the table of the Gabriel Knight world. People seem to really connect to the music, and it's play. I've had so many people share their great stories. Oh, your music helped me through the death of my father, or
mm,
your music we played at my wedding, or yeah. And it means so much, as a creative person to have that kind of feedback. So for me, it was just kind of, hey, there's a legitimate audience for the music, and I wanted to try and nurture that relationship and give them more things to enjoy. I was kind of raised to believe that one of the real reasons we're here on the planet is to make a positive impact and to contribute. And this is just kind of the thing I do best in a way that I feel I can contribute to somebody's happiness. And so, I'm going to keep doing it any way I can.
Yeah, well, we want you to keep doing it as well. Well, thank you for that. And thank you, Michael, as well. Now, you mentioned, I believe, before recording that you wanted to maybe tease some of the things. We've probably spoken about some of those things, the obligatory Gabriel Knight question and Grey Matter. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would like to mention or tease?
Well, it's, again, I just want to say, about those things specifically, that we're doing everything we can do to help try and make those happen. And we hope to make that happen. In terms of the music specifically, I guess one thing I'd like people to keep an eye out for, because of the success of Sequel and how wonderful the response has been. I'm planning actually on doing another project next year, and we'll probably have another crowdfunding campaign. And it will likely have a very close relationship to Sequel. In fact, I'm having a lunch with Roberta tomorrow to talk about strategies, or actually on Friday, talk about strategies for this. But it's been so great to have people really appreciate it. And I've got much more of that music to do. So I think we're going to try and find some valuable way to hopefully do more of that.
So it could be a sequel to the sequel.
That's right.
That's fantastic. Well, look, I wish you all the best with that. And again, I will be happy to contribute to any crowdfunding as well. I'd love to have you on again.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate, as you did last year, and as we're doing today, that you help give the opportunity for people to hear about this, and it's very valuable.
Any way we can, and I hope this is public. I think it is. So I think we could mention as well. You also have something else. Are you working on? Is it Fogtown? Are you involved with that? Is that public?
Yes.
Okay, thank God, because this is live.
Yeah, the good folks who are working on Fogtown, which is a very cool project.
Absolutely. I love the look of it. I love everything about it already.
Yeah, it is so creative and it's so fun, and they are so smart. And Sean and his team have been very nice. They're GK fans. Sean is a big fan, and so they had asked me, if I would be involved musically in ways that might make sense. They already have a really gifted composer involved, but there's always ways that you can sort of have multiple composers working on stuff. And so I'm looking forward. I'll probably be doing some themes and some special things to be a part of that as it grows, and that'll be a lot of fun. I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan. Jane and I, even went to Baker Street one of the times we were in London and visited the Sherlock Holmes Museum. And
I did as well.
We're big Anglophiles, so we're I'm excited to be a part of that, and I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, no, I spoke to the guys as well. And they showed me some behind the scenes how they're working on it, and it looks absolutely incredible. And I've seen some of the videos as well. It's really funny.
Yeah, it is. It's very well done.
And then there's a Gabriel Knight connection as well, because I believe Dean Erickson is going to play a character. He's coming back,
right.
Which I couldn't believe, because he didn't do any acting, I believe, since Gabriel Knight, and now he's coming back for that. So that's obviously something it really interested him enough to go back. So
yeah, it's very cool.
So yeah, no, fantastic. Well, thank you so much as always, Robert. It's I can't believe the second time I've spoken to you. It really is great. Again, I would love to have you. Hopefully, we should make this a tradition. Maybe next.
That's great.
That's
That's
great.
great.
Christmas.
Next time, we'll see if we can get Jane to join us. So.
Yeah, I would be delighted, even just to thank her and you. And again, I speak for myself first. Thank you for all the work that you mentioned that you contribute positively. You definitely do. Your music, I listened to it growing up because I believe I had the soundtrack of Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fat, of the first two Gabriel Knights, and I just listened to that on repeat. So thank you. So yeah, hopefully I'll be delighted to get Jane on as well, just to thank her for her contribution and to talk to her more. But look, the very best of luck with sequel. I'm delighted to hear that's doing so well with CD and the vinyl version, and whatever else you're working on in future as well. I cannot wait to hear more.
Well, thanks, and this is always fun. It's always great to catch up, and thanks everyone who eventually tunes in or listens to this, and it's just so great for me to be able to share the music and have people appreciate it. So thank you very much to everyone.
Indeed, yeah. Thanks to people who joined us live, to Michael, and to anybody who watches or listens afterwards. And again, I will include links. Make sure if you can, of course, to try and to help people like Robert directly as well. So because we want you guys to continue working and doing this. So thank you, Robert. We will keep in touch. And let's do it again next year.
Sounds good, and happy holidays to everybody.
And happy holidays to you guys as well. So
take care.